Have you ever been on a date where everything felt just fine? Like they showed up on time, they were actually nice, and for some reason your brain went, "Oh, this is so boring. Where's the spark?"
Oh, absolutely. It's that classic lightning feeling we've all been told to chase. But here's the wild thing. Research shows that the spark we're obsessed with is often just our sympathetic nervous system triggering a fight or flight response. Your heart races and your palms sweat. But it might not be love. It might be your body reacting to a potential threat or an old chaotic pattern.
That is such a reframe. So, what we call boring might actually just be our nervous system finally feeling regulated and safe?
Exactly. It's a slow burn rather than an explosion. Before we dive into why healthy love often starts quiet, make sure to follow @Translation Table on social media and subscribe to our channel.
Let's explore how to tell the difference between a connection that's truly flat and one that's just beautifully, safely calm. It is so wild to think that we have been conditioned to see a racing heart as the ultimate green flag. I mean, I have definitely been there. You meet someone and you are immediately obsessed. You can't eat, you can't sleep, and you're constantly checking your phone for that next dopamine hit. It feels like destiny, right? Like the universe is literally screaming, "This is the one."
It feels like a movie. The music swells, the room fades away. But when we look at the biology, that destiny feeling is often just a cocktail of stress hormones. We are talking cortisol and adrenaline flooding your system. Your pupils dilate, your heart rate spikes. It is the exact same physiological reaction you'd have if you were about to give a huge presentation, or honestly, if you were sensing actual danger. Psychologists have a term for this, the misattribution of arousal. We feel this massive surge of physical energy, and our brains, trying to make sense of it in a romantic context, just label it as chemistry.
So we're basically misreading our own body's alarm system? That is terrifying. It's like our internal compass is pointing north, but north is actually a thunderstorm.
Exactly. And for a lot of us, that thunderstorm feels like home, because it's what we grew up with or what we've experienced in past toxic loops. If you're used to inconsistency, someone who is hot one minute and cold the next, your brain gets hooked on the reward phase of that cycle. It's called intermittent reinforcement. When that person finally texts back after 3 days of silence, your brain releases a massive amount of dopamine. The relief feels so intense that you confuse it with deep connection.
That makes so much sense. The high only feels that good because the low was so anxious and painful. It's like a literal addiction. I was reading about a woman named Jenna, a pediatric therapist who was actually an expert at reading people for a living. She got caught in this exact cycle. For months, she was being love-bombed. Intense attention, constant texts, being told she was the most amazing person ever within weeks. It felt like she was finally being seen, but in reality, it was just a high-speed performance designed to bypass her natural defenses.
That is the danger of the spark. It moves too fast for your ordinary relationship evaluation mechanisms to even kick in. Real healthy affection usually grows in relationship to actual shared experiences. It's built on seeing how someone handles a stressful day or how they treat a waiter, not on how many flowery texts they send you before they even know your middle name. When the intensity outpaces the evidence, that's usually a sign that your nervous system is being hijacked by a pattern, not a person.
And yet, we've been told that if we don't feel that immediate bolt of lightning, we should just move on. It's like we're addicted to the rush, and we've forgotten how to appreciate the warmth of a steady fire.
Right. And that is why a regulated nervous system can feel so unsettling at first. When you meet someone who is consistent, who texts when they say they will, and who doesn't play games, there is no adrenaline rush. There is no chase. And to a brain that is wired for the roller coaster, that lack of stress feels like a lack of interest. You think, I'm just not feeling it, when what you're actually not feeling is the anxiety of not knowing where you stand.
It's a total recalibration of what attraction even means. We have to learn that the flip in our stomach might not be butterflies. It might be our body bracing for impact.
Precisely. It's about moving from a state of hypervigilance, where you're constantly scanning for signs or editing yourself to keep the peace, to a state of actual presence. In a healthy, slow burn, you don't have to perform. You don't have to earn the connection. You just get to exist.
I think the hardest part of this for most people, especially if you've been through the ringer with toxic relationships, is that calm actually feels wrong. It's like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're on a date with a great person, conversation is easy, they're respectful, and instead of feeling relaxed, you're feeling restless. You're almost looking for a reason to find them unattractive just so you can justify why you don't feel that spark.
That restlessness is so real. I've seen this a lot in the research. People who have experienced high-conflict relationships often show an increased stress response when they are put in calm interpersonal situations. Their bodies have literally been trained to interpret peace as a precursor to an attack. It's like the quiet part of a horror movie right before the monster jumps out. If your map of love was drawn in chaos, then stability feels like a trap.
That is such a heavy realization that our own survival strategies are the things keeping us from the love we actually want. I was reading about a therapist named John Kim who had a similar breakthrough. He was dating someone named Vanessa, and he told his therapist, "The lightning isn't there." He was confused because he felt safe and comfortable, but he missed that can't eat, can't sleep intensity. His therapist told him, maybe the lightning you're comparing everything to was actually dysfunction.
That is the aha moment right there. We confuse danger with desire. We think that if our stomach isn't in knots, we aren't in love. But what if those knots were actually just our body's way of saying, I don't trust this person to stay? When you're with someone safe, your body doesn't need to spike your dopamine or adrenaline because you aren't in a state of threat. You're not trying to win them over or solve the puzzle of their emotional unavailability.
It's like we're addicted to the high of the makeup phase after a fight. That cycle of tension, explosion, and reconciliation creates this incredibly strong emotional bond, a trauma bond. And compared to that, a guy who just shows up and is nice every single day feels like, well, like plain oatmeal.
Right, but oatmeal is what sustains you. The roller coaster is what burns you out. Think about it. In an unregulated relationship, you are doing so much emotional labor just to keep things steady. You're monitoring their tone, you're overthinking every text, you're walking on eggshells. That is exhausting. When you finally enter a regulated connection, all that work disappears, and suddenly you have all this empty space in your brain. If you're used to using that space for managing the relationship, the emptiness feels like boredom.
So it's not that the relationship is boring, it's that you're finally allowed to rest and your body doesn't know how to do that yet. It's like being a soldier who comes home from a war zone and can't sleep because it's too quiet. You're so used to the noise that the silence feels deafening.
That is such a perfect analogy. And the way to heal that is through repetition of safety. You have to give your nervous system time to recalibrate. You have to stay in the boring long enough for your body to realize that boring actually means I can breathe. It's about learning to value consistency over intensity.
I love that idea. Consistency over intensity. Because intensity is a flash in the pan. It's context-free. Someone can be intense after 2 dates, but they can't be consistent until they've actually shown up for you over time.
Exactly. Genuine affection grows in proportion to real evidence. It's not about being fascinated by a performance. It's about being curious about a person. Boredom is when you're checked out and there's no curiosity. Calm is when you're present, you're curious, but you're just not activated.
So if you're sitting there wondering if you should break up with someone because there's no spark, maybe the better question is, am I bored or am I just safe? If you're still curious about them, if you respect them, and if you feel like you can be yourself, don't walk away just because your heart isn't thumping out of your chest. You might just be experiencing your first healthy relationship.
You know, we really have to talk about why we're drawn to the chaos in the first place. It's not just random bad luck. It's often these internal working models we developed way back in childhood. Psychologists call it attachment theory, and it is basically the blueprint for how we expect love to work.
It's like we're all walking around with these hidden scripts, right? If your early experiences with love were inconsistent, like if your parents were sometimes there and sometimes not, you might develop an anxious attachment style. And for someone with that style, a partner who is a bit avoidant or unpredictable feels, well, they feel like home.
Precisely. It's the familiarity principle. Our nervous system prioritizes what is familiar over what is good. If love always felt like the chase or earning affection, then a partner who is slightly out of reach triggers that old wiring. You think, wow, I feel so much chemistry. But what you're really feeling is your attachment system going into overdrive to save the connection.
It's so backward. We're literally wired to chase the people who are the least likely to give us what we need.
I was reading about the anxious-avoidant trap. It's this classic cycle where the anxious person pursues closeness because they're afraid of being abandoned, and the avoidant person pulls away because they're afraid of being engulfed. The more the avoidant person pulls away, the more chemistry the anxious person feels because their system is screaming for reassurance.
And that tension, that push-pull, is what we call passion. But it's actually just attachment stress. On the flip side, if you meet someone who is securely attached, someone who is just there, it doesn't trigger that chase mechanism. There is no anxiety to resolve, so there is no dopamine spike when they text you. Your brain goes, no drama? Must be no chemistry.
It's like we're looking for a puzzle to solve rather than a person to be with. We pick the fixer-upper or the mysterious one because it keeps us busy. If we pick someone who is already whole and available, we have to actually be vulnerable. We have to be seen. And for a lot of us, that is way scarier than the drama.
That is a huge point. Real intimacy, the slow burn kind, requires you to show up as you are. In the lightning relationships, you're often playing a role. You're the perfect partner, or the hero who can save them. You're performing. But in a calm relationship, there's no performance needed, and that can feel flat because we've been using drama to avoid the actual discomfort of being truly known.
I love how one of the sources put it. Intensity is not intimacy. Anxiety is not attraction. Chaos is not chemistry. We need to put those on a t-shirt. It's about recognizing that a secure partner will never leave you guessing. They show you through their actions that they're reliable. They don't play games. They're a source of comfort, not an agent of chaos.
And if you find yourself constantly attracting toxic people, it's often because your red flag sensor is broken, or rather it's been tuned to the wrong frequency. You might be ignoring the secure people because they feel boring and gravitating toward the ones who make your stomach flip because that flip is what you've been taught to call love.
It's like our spark is actually a warning signal that we've mistaken for a welcome mat. We have to learn to recalibrate our inner compass. One study even found that avoidantly attached people actually feel better about their relationships when they do novel and exciting things together, like trying a new hobby. But anxiously attached people feel more secure when they do familiar and comfortable things, like watching a favorite show.
That is such a great practical tip. If you're feeling bored in a healthy relationship, maybe you just need to inject some healthy novelty, not drama novelty. Go rock climbing or take a cooking class. Trigger those fun chemicals without triggering the I'm going to be abandoned chemicals.
Right? It's about building a new home that isn't built on the old blueprint. It's choosing the slow burn because you realize that the explosion always leaves you standing in the ashes.
We often talk about the excitement of those high-intensity relationships, but we rarely talk about the literal physical toll they take on your body. If you are in a relationship where your nervous system never gets to rest, where you are always bracing for a fight or searching for reassurance, you are living in a state of chronic stress.
It's exhausting. I was reading about attachment stress and how it's different from actual love. When you're in it, you might tell yourself, relationships are just hard work, or I just need to try harder. But your body is telling a different story. You get brain fog, you're irritable, you can't sleep. You're essentially over-functioning just to keep the connection alive.
Right, and that level of effort is simply not sustainable. Your nervous system is always asking one core question. Am I safe here? Not just emotionally, but physiologically. In an unregulated relationship, the answer is often no or maybe. So your body stays in monitoring mode. You're checking their location, you're overanalyzing their tone of voice, you're editing your own words so you don't set them off. That is not intimacy. That is survival.
It reminds me of what Dr. Stacy Royal DuPont said, that love should be a place where your system can recover, not a place where it has to perform. If your relationship feels like a test of endurance, that is a huge red flag. Healthy love should feel restorative. It should feel like a refuge from the rest of the world, not another roller coaster you have to survive.
And the cost of that roller coaster isn't just felt in the relationship. It leaks into every part of your life. When you're constantly dysregulated at home, you're less productive at work, you're more reactive with your friends, and your self-esteem takes a massive hit because you're constantly proving your worth to someone who is emotionally unavailable.
It's like you're shrinking yourself to fit into a space that was never meant for you. You call it compassion or being patient, but it's actually just self-abandonment. You're so focused on regulating their emotions or preventing their blow-ups that you completely lose touch with your own needs.
That is the toxic spark in action. It creates this magnetic pull that makes you feel like you have to stay and fix things. But the truth is, the more you try to fix a dysregulated dynamic by yourself, the more you burn out your own system. It's like trying to put out a fire with your own blood.
Whoa, that is a vivid image, but it's so true. I've seen people stay in those loops for years because the makeup phase gives them just enough of a hit to think, see, we can be good. But then the devaluation phase starts again, and they're back to walking on eggshells. It's a literal micro-fracturing of the relationship and of your own mental health.
On the other hand, in a regulated relationship, a slow burn, the effort is shared. You don't have to manage the environment because both people are responsible for their own regulation. There is space to be imperfect. There is space to repair without being punished. It feels light.
And that lightness is what people mistake for a lack of depth. They think that if it's not heavy and hard, it must not be real love. But real love is what allows you to actually thrive in the rest of your life. It's the secure base that lets you go out and take risks in the world because you know you have a soft place to land.
Exactly. It's about moving from vigilance to receptivity. When your body finally believes it can rest, your heart rate steadies, your muscles unclench, and you can actually receive love instead of just fighting for it. It's not boring. It's the most profound kind of freedom there is.
Okay, so let's get practical for a second. If someone is listening to this and they're in a new relationship and they're feeling that boredom, how do they know if it's safe boring or actually just not into them boring? Because that is the million-dollar question, right?
It really is. And the answer lies in your body, not your imagination. There's a very clear litmus test we can use. First, look at bored. Boredom usually feels like disconnection. You're not curious about them. You feel emotionally flat or even drained after being with them. You're already checked out and maybe even fantasizing about being anywhere else. There is no emotional intimacy, just routine.
Right. So it's like they're a nice person, but you just don't care what they have to say. That is actually just boring. But what does safe look like?
Safe looks like regulation. You feel a deep sense of calm and ease around them. You're actually curious about them. You want to know what they think and how they feel. You respect them. There are no red flags, no games, and no drama. But there is a sense of steady excitement. You look forward to seeing them, even if it's just to do something mundane like grocery shopping.
I love that distinction. Bored equals checked out. Safe equals resting. It's the difference between I don't care and I don't have to worry.
Exactly. Another great check is the anxiety test. In a toxic spark situation, if they don't text back for an hour, you panic. Your stomach drops. You start overanalyzing everything you said, and you feel this desperate need for validation. In a safe relationship, if they don't text back, you just go about your day. You assume they're busy. You don't feel that threat to your self-worth.
And that lack of panic is what we sometimes misinterpret as not caring enough. We think if I'm not obsessed, I must not be in love. But in reality, you're just not anxious. And that is a massive green flag. It means you trust the connection enough to let it breathe.
Another big one is how you feel after you leave them. Do you feel peaceful and grounded, or do you feel frantic and on a high that quickly turns into a crash? A slow burn relationship leaves you feeling warm and steady. A toxic spark relationship leaves you feeling intoxicated. And we all know that intoxication always comes with a hangover.
That is such a good way to put it. And let's talk about conflict. In a boring relationship, you might not fight at all because you just don't care enough to bring things up. In a safe relationship, you do have friction, but it's regulated. You can express a need or a hurt without being punished. There is repair.
Right. Safety isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of repair. It's knowing that you can disagree and still be close. In a toxic dynamic, every disagreement feels like an existential threat to the relationship. In a safe one, it's just a bump in the road that you navigate together.
So if you're bored, ask yourself, am I curious? Do I feel more like myself around them? Do I feel respected? If the answer is yes, then you're not bored. You're just finally regulated, and you need to give yourself permission to enjoy that peace instead of running away from it.
And remember, safe love isn't flat. It's the foundation that actually allows for true passion. When you don't have to spend all your energy on survival, you can actually focus on play, humor, and depth. The spark in a healthy relationship doesn't come from chaos. It comes from genuine, vulnerable connection. It's a glow rather than a flash.
I want to talk about this idea of softness. We usually hear about romance being the goal, the grand gestures, the flowers, the candlelit dinners. But I've been reading that softness is actually way more important for long-term success. It's like the quiet version of intimacy.
That is so true. Romance is often about performance, how the love looks to the outside world. But softness is about regulation, how the love feels on the inside. It's about being safe all the time, not just being charming on date night. Softness is holding space for your partner without needing to fix them. It's listening without preparing a rebuttal. It's choosing presence over perfection.
I love that. Romance excites the nervous system, but softness calms it. And when your body is calm, you can actually be more intimate. If you're constantly on guard or hypervigilant, your body isn't going to let you fully open up. You're always going to have a bit of armor on. Softness is what allows that armor to drop.
It's basically emotional maturity in action. And for a lot of people, especially men, softness is often misunderstood as weakness. But in reality, it takes so much more strength to be vulnerable and soft than it does to be stoic or guarded. Softness means you're secure enough in yourself that you don't need to win every argument or control the environment.
It's the antidote to emotional burnout. I think a lot of us are just tired. Tired of the chase, tired of the mixed signals, tired of having to perform to be lovable. Softness is the permission to just be. It's a relationship where your no is respected, your boundaries aren't a negotiation, and your silence isn't weaponized.
And that softness is what actually sustains attraction in the long run. The spark of new chemistry is a dopamine hit that eventually fades. It's biological. But the safety of a soft relationship is what creates a deep, lasting bond. It's what allows you to survive the hard stuff, the stress, the illness, the aging, without the relationship breaking.
It's so radical because modern dating culture, the swiping, the playing it cool, the detachment, is basically the opposite of softness. We're taught to maintain power by being indifferent. But softness is the ultimate power move because it says, I am here, I am available, and I am safe.
Right. And for women especially, softness is often what is actually being craved when they say they want romance. Flowers are great, but they don't compensate for emotional absence. A grand gesture doesn't replace consistency. What people truly want is to not have to carry the emotional labor all by themselves. Softness is a shared responsibility for the emotional climate.
It reminds me of the case for quiet love. That idea that you can just sit in a room together reading separate books and feel completely connected without saying a word. That intrinsic silence is a huge sign of a secure attachment. You don't need to fill the space with talk or entertainment because the connection itself is enough.
That is love at rest. And if that feels boring to you, it's a sign that your system is still looking for activation to prove that the love is real. But as you recalibrate, as you learn to trust the slow burn, that quiet connection starts to feel like the most beautiful thing in the world. It's the feeling of, I can rest here.
So it's not just about finding a safe person. It's about becoming a soft person. It's a daily choice to respond with curiosity instead of defensiveness, to slow things down when you feel yourself getting activated, to choose longevity over intensity.
We have to talk about something called the secure ick. It's that feeling when you meet someone who is actually healthy, emotionally available, and kind, and for some reason you find them kind of repulsive. Or at least you find their eagerness or steadiness really off-putting.
Oh my God, the secure ick is so real. It's like they text you good morning, and instead of thinking, oh, how sweet, you think, oh, why are they so obsessed with me? Get a life. It's this weird visceral reaction to someone being too available.
Right, and it's not because they're actually too much. It's because their availability is triggering your fear of engulfment. For a lot of us, closeness was unsafe in the past. Maybe it meant losing your autonomy, or having someone smother you, or having to fix someone else's problems. So when a secure person shows up and wants to be close, your system goes, danger, trap, run.
It's the push-pull cycle in action. One part of you desperately wants connection. That's the pull. But as soon as you get it, another part of you panics and pushes them away to protect your space. You find a flaw, you pick a fight, or you just go cold. And then as soon as they pull back, you start to miss them, and the pull starts all over again.
And the tragedy is that we often mistake this pull-pull for intense chemistry. We think the relationship is passionate because of all the drama, but it's actually just two people triggering each other's attachment fears. The anxious person is chasing to avoid abandonment, and the avoidant person is running to avoid engulfment.
So when you meet a secure person, someone who doesn't run and doesn't chase, there is no cycle to join. There's no game to play. And to a system that is used to the push-pull, that feels like there's no spark. You think, they're just not my type. But your type might just be people who make me feel anxious.
Exactly. The secure ick is often just your nervous system's way of rejecting something it doesn't know how to handle. It's like a threat-sensitive system reacting to peace. You have to learn to sit through the ick. You have to realize that their consistency isn't weakness or neediness. It's just health.
I love the idea of naming the part of you that's doing the pushing. Like, oh, there's my push part coming up, because the state actually went well and that feels scary. If you can label it, you can regulate it. You can say, I am activated right now, but that doesn't mean this person is wrong for me.
And repair is the secret weapon here. If you go cold or shut down, a healthy relationship allows you to come back and say, hey, I got a little flooded and I needed some space, but I'm back now. In a toxic relationship, going cold is used as a weapon. In a healthy one, needing space is a boundary that is respected.
Right.
And the more you practice staying in the calm, the more your nervous system recalibrates. Eventually, the secure ick fades, and you start to find consistency and kindness incredibly attractive. You start to realize that the person who doesn't make your heart race is the one you can actually build a life with.
It's moving from cinematic drama to lived reality, and that is a huge shift. It's choosing a partner, not a project. It's realizing that passion shouldn't be a roller coaster. It should be the glow of being truly seen and safely held. So we've covered a lot of ground today, from the toxic spark to quiet love. It's clear that our nervous system is the real matchmaker behind the scenes. But for everyone listening who is ready to break the pattern and choose the slow burn, what are the actual, tangible steps they can take starting today?
It starts with awareness, but it has to move into deliberate action. You can't just think your way into a new nervous system. You have to behave your way into it. First step, get clear on your requirements. Not just traits you want, but behaviors. Do you need daily communication? Do you need someone who takes accountability during conflict? Write those down as alignment filters.
I love that, alignment filters. It's not about demanding perfection. It's about knowing what you need to feel safe. And if someone can't meet those basic needs, they aren't mysterious. They're just unaligned.
Exactly. Step 2, practice direct communication. A secure partner isn't going to be scared off by you saying, I'm looking for a committed relationship. Is that what you're looking for? In fact, they'll appreciate the clarity. If someone gets weird when you state your needs, that is information, not a rejection of you.
Right. And step 3, learn to distinguish observation from interpretation. If they haven't texted you back in 5 hours, the observation is they haven't texted. The interpretation is they don't love me anymore and I'm fundamentally unlovable. Stick to the facts. It helps keep your nervous system from spiraling into old wounds.
That is so key. Step 4, recalibrate your spark meter. When you feel that intense rush, instead of leaning in, try slowing it down. See if the connection still feels good when you aren't intoxicated by the pace. And on the flip side, if you feel bored but safe, stay for 3 more dates.
Give your body time to figure out that calm isn't danger.
I call that the 3-date rule for health. If they're a green flag person, but you're feeling the ick or the boredom, give it a few more reps. Sometimes the chemistry shows up once the anxiety settles. It's like a slow-release dopamine instead of an instant hit.
And step 5, build rituals of connection. If you're in a healthy relationship and it feels quiet, lean into that. Put the phones away for 10 minutes and just be together. Establish a check-in ritual at the end of the day. These small daily rituals are what build the oxytocin bond that sustains you.
And don't forget repair. If things get tense, don't just withdraw or blow up. Practice saying, I'm feeling a bit activated. Can we take a break and come back to this in 20 minutes? This shows your nervous system that conflict doesn't mean the end. It builds trust in the safety of the relationship.
And finally, consider support. If you find yourself self-sabotaging or picking fights just to feel something, therapy can be a game changer. Whether it's EMDR to process old relational trauma or just attachment-based coaching, having someone to help you map your triggers is so valuable. You don't have to rewire your brain all by yourself.
It's about moving from survival to sovereignty. You're no longer a victim of your old patterns. You're the architect of a new kind of love, a love that is grounded, warm, and spacious.
And that love, the slow burn love, is the one that actually lasts. It's the one that lets you grow instead of shrink. It's the one that feels less like work and more like home.
As we wrap this up, I'm just thinking about how much we've been lied to by the movies and the songs. We've been taught that love is a storm, but the most transformative love is actually a calm harbor.
It really is. And to everyone listening who is currently sitting in that boring, healthy relationship, or who is terrified of the kind person they just met, know that you aren't broken. Your anxiety isn't intuition, and your boredom isn't lack of chemistry. You're just healing.
I love that. You're not bored. You're just finally regulated. That is a truth to hold on to. It's okay to miss the noise for a little while, as long as you don't let it drive you back into the storm.
Exactly. The high of the toxic spark is a performance, but the peace of the slow burn is a presence. It's the quiet power of being fully yourself and being fully accepted. It doesn't need to be loud to be real. In fact, the most profound things in life are often the quietest.
Think about a forest at dawn, the mist lifting, the birds starting to sing. It's not dramatic, but it is alive and steady. That is what a healthy relationship feels like. It's the presence of safety rather than the absence of chaos.
So, our final thought-provoking question for you today is this. What would happen if you stopped looking for the person who makes your heart race and started looking for the person who makes your heart feel at home? What if you trusted the calm instead of chasing the lightning?
It's a radical shift, but it's the shift that changes everything. We want to thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. It's not easy to unlearn the patterns that kept us safe for so long, but it is so, so worth it.
Take a moment to reflect on your own red flags and green flags. Notice how your body feels when you think about safety versus intensity. Give yourself the grace to recalibrate at your own pace.
You deserve a love that doesn't cost you yourself. You deserve a love that feels like an exhale. Thank you for listening, and we hope you take one small step towards softness and regulation today.